بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا أنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. لله تبارك وتعالى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I pray to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that all is well for most of you, and that Allah removes any difficulty that is affecting some of you and move you to a state of well-being. I wanted to join you tonight briefly with some beneficial information that I think we need to seriously consider. In light of the tragedy that affected the Muslim community in Newark, New Jersey, and the death of their Imam, may Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala grant him a high status in the hereafter and assemble him under the banner of Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And grant him his pardon, his mercy, his forgiveness, and his acceptance. Oftentimes on this platform, you hear myself and Imam Naim and Imam Fahim and other Imams address the situation of African American Muslims and the realities that African American Imams face on a daily basis. And sometimes people may say, these guys, they're over top with it or over the top with it. Until situations like these happen, and it kinds to bring home the points that we be making. You know, we're on the battleground. Literally, we're on the battleground. And sometimes we are really crying out to our communities for support, for assistance, for additional troops. And sometimes we find that lacking. So I wanted to just have a few reflections and thoughts and some beneficial reminders of what I believe are some of the things that we need to correct in our communities that could have possibly served as preventive measures for some of the tragedies that happen in our communities. Some of them are extremely basic, and some of them involve work. I want to start with I believe is the most important one. And it's mentioned in the Quran in Surah number 49, Surah Hujurat, verse number 15. So that's Surah 59, chapter number 59, verse 15. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in this verse, إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون. Allah mentions in this verse, verily, the only true believers, real believers, are those who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger and thereafter never doubt. And they struggle, they strive hard, diligently, with their wealth and themselves in the path of Allah. That's the real believer. And then Allah gave them some more praiseworthy title, or another praiseworthy title after the believer, by saying, verily, these are the true, sincere servants of Allah. It doesn't take a lot for us to get the point from this verse. All of us who uttered the testification of faith, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah, we did that so we would be called believers. We want to be believers. But in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the real believer that he wants us to be. Not the believer we want to be, the believer that Allah wants us to be. So he gave us the description of that believer in a very concise, inward and outward description. And I think we should reflect on it, because I believe that this is our biggest problem in our communities. We don't know what a real believer is. Inwardly and outwardly. It's on our tongues as words, but the reality is not in the heart nor on the limbs. And we must fix that issue. So what does Allah talk about first? The real believer has a certain state in the heart. So Allah said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا. That the real believer are those who believed in Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So they have what? Al-Iman, which is really a tasdeeq al-jazm, unshakable, firm, absolute conviction in Allah and His Messenger. That means they believe in Allah and what Allah revealed, and His Messenger, meaning they believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed from Allah, and they have an absolute, unshakable conviction in that. Our teachers used to say to us, Islam is the truth and everything other than it is false. Our teachers used to tell us, Islam is the truth and everything other than it is false. That's a conviction that the real believer has to have. And so that means that everything that Islam calls for, we must fulfill it. And everything that Islam prohibits, we must avoid it. And before you actually do the actions, there needs to be conviction in the heart. So whenever we hear a verse of the Quran or a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanding us something or forbidding us from something, we must have an attitude of, I hear and I obey. Sami'na wa ata'na. We hear and we obey. That should be our, that's the state of the heart before we say or do anything. The state of the heart is complete surrender, conviction, and submission to Islam. Before anything. That's the state of the heart. And that is the same thing when it comes to any aspect of our life, because our entire life is under the rules of Islam, every aspect. So every aspect, that's how you're supposed to be at the heart level. At the heart level we're talking about. If you are not at the heart level of complete conviction in the truthfulness of Islam, you're not going to do what Islam dictates you to do. You're not going to avoid what Islam orders you to avoid, because the first condition for performance or for leaving off is a conviction in the heart and the truthfulness and the validity of that thing which you're talking about. It's a state of the heart first, before anything. That's why Allah addresses the believer's state of his heart. Then he said, ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا. And thereafter, after having that first, the next step, then you never doubt. Which means you remain steadfast upon that conviction until you die, until you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's your state. It doesn't fluctuate. The basis of your faith is firmly rooted. Islam is true and everything else is false. Period. Full stop. Exclamation mark. That's it. That takes a soldier to be like that. That's a real soldier. Because you know what? When you have that conviction, you're ready to die at any moment. In fact, you have understood that death on the status of Islam is the biggest victory you can have in life. Death on the status of Islam is the biggest, greatest victory you can have in life. And there's an old saying, if you're not ready to die for anything, you're not going to stand for nothing. If you're not ready to die for anything, you're not going to stand for nothing. That's a serious thing. And we've reached a point in our communities, we're afraid to die. And we're afraid to die because we don't have real conviction in Islam. We're afraid to die because we don't have real conviction in Islam. We actually have a conviction on other than Islam as truth. And that's why we're clinging to other than the deen. So we really are convinced of the other stuff, not Islam. This is each and every one of us got to take a real serious look at ourselves. And I know on the internet, it sounds great. Nice lectures, nice talk, nice sounding. Yeah. But when you got to tie your boots up, strap them joints up, and you got to be really ready to put it all on the line, then we'll see you. And guess what? You're called to do that every single day of your life. You're called to do that every single day of your life. Your entire life is Islam. So your entire life is preparation for death. And you're always, when it comes to death, labaik, at your service. I'm ready. That's the believer. They have no doubt. The promise of Allah is true. The threat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true. And the believer, the real believer, has absolute conviction in it. And that's why he can move. That's why he can move like that. That's why she can move like that. So they don't doubt. I got no doubt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us success and victory. We just got to be Muslim. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The believers are already successful. If you're a believer, that's the question. Are you a believer? It's a guarantee from Allah. Certainty. The believers are already successful. Question, are you a believer? So that's the inward state. So before we talk about anything, open your mouth. Before you do anything, make sure that's your state of heart. That's the inward part. That's the real believer. That's the real believer. Inward. Now, Since that's the case, Allahu Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is going to really test us in that. What's next? Outward. Okay, you said that's you there, right? You convinced. You down. You believe, no doubt. Islam is the truth and everything else is falsehood. You there. Okay, good. Now I need you to do something. I need you to do something with that faith. That conviction you got, that no doubt you got, that you ready to die. I need you to do something. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And they're ready to struggle with their wealth and with their own self, their bodies, their physical bodies, their spirits, their souls, everything connected with them. They're going to give their wealth, their money, and themselves, and they're going to struggle and strive with that in the path of Allah. That's going to be the testimony outwardly of that inward conviction. And it's active. Wajahadu, they're actually doing something. It's work. It's outside. It ain't just talk. Now you got to do something. And here's the real test. Look at the formation of the words in this verse. When it's talking about we got to work, we got to struggle. And Allah is telling us this ain't going to be easy. That's why he said, wajahadu. It's going to be struggle. It's going to be hard striving and sacrifice to do this work. It's going to take all of you. Everything you got, that's what you got to put up. Bi amwalihim wa anfusihim. That's what you got to put up in the path of Allah. But notice the sequence. You got to struggle. So Allah is telling you ahead of time, you're going to be tested with this one. But how do you got to pass this test? Bi amwalikum. By way of your money. Because we cling to our money. And that lets you know, for Islam to be successful, for our institutions, our masjids, our schools, our communities to be successful, it's going to take money. That's in the Quran. Read it. It's going to take money. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ was going for jihad in the path of Allah, during that outward physical struggle, he used to collect money for the journey, for the battle. He would collect the money in the masjid, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would, because he understood Allah's words. You're going to have to sacrifice your money, because to do this work, it's going to involve a financial sacrifice. That's real. Or you're not serious. Or you're not serious. You're not. And not only do you have to give your money, that's one aspect of it. And it is important because most of us cling to our money. So Allahu Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, shows you that's going to be a struggle. Then not only are you going to give your money, but guess what you're going to give to? Yourself. You have to be willing to put yourself on the line. Because it takes both to spread the message of Islam. Both, not just one aspect. You're going to end up sacrificing on both sides, your wealth and yourself. That means you got to be all in. There's no part-time true believer. The true believer, full-time job. Full-time job. And Allah describes such people, Ulaika humus sadiqun. These are the sincere people. These are the sincere people. And then to do all this, you got to understand that's a battle against your nafs, against your ego, against your lower self. That's a struggle. To do all of that. So before you do the outward jihad, the outward struggle, the outward battle, you got to do the inward battle, or you will never do the outward battle. You got to do the inward part. And I'm going to lead to what I'm talking about. And I want to be honest with you. I'm extremely upset that happened to that Imam, that he was killed on the masjid grounds. And that upset, that state of being upset is with us, especially our people. Because there was a time when we understood these things and we were less learned about Islam. There was a time in our communities where we understood these things and we were less learned about the deen. And now we have knowledge, no practice, no struggle. I remember those days when, forget about it, ain't never to happen. That would never happen. I remember those days. I was a kid, but I remember them well. And I think we need to look at this stuff. If the money was right, if the people would sacrifice, these things can be prevented. I don't need to know the details. I know we slipping. And I know that, and I don't have to be there because I can look around in all of our communities, we slipping big time. And that's why we're slipping. We don't understand this verse. I want you to think about that. I was in Jumu'ah today. And after Jumu'ah, I gave my community a harsh reality check. Some people get uncomfortable when I talk that way, but hey, look, man, I'm uncomfortable that you lazy. So we equal. We both uncomfortable. The fact that you lazy, not paying attention, not committed, not sacrificing, not struggle, I don't like that. So we both don't like something. But I thought about something. This tragedy just happened, right? And you would watch in our communities where people are aware of such things and still act the same as if nothing happened. That's sad. No light bulb go off in your head to say, we got to tighten up. Just business as usual. Just business as usual. Really? That's a leader. Whether he's on your minhaj or on your madhab or on that, that's a concept in the heart of the Black community where there's that level of disregard for the sanctity of Islam. Forget the individual in this terms. That's a complete disregard of the sanctity of Islam, and we cool with it. It doesn't warrant us to do something different, really, really, really inside. It's something we should think about. Because if we did the money thing, we funded our communities, the Imam shouldn't go anywhere without security. He shouldn't. If we funded our communities, Imam should have 24-hour security. If we're serious about building, because the Imam has to work, and he does, in our communities on our problems 24 hours a day. A real Black Imam, he don't have no schedule. He's 24 hours a day. So that means he needs to have 24 hours a day security. Because he's got to put himself on the line 24 hours a day while we sleeping. While we sleeping, he's on the battlefield. He's on the front lines. And we talk, but we ain't working. We ain't working. But the Imam, and many of the Black Imams around the country, this is their daily reality. You're looking at just one aspect. They confront with this stuff almost every day. Inside, outside, in the community, in the masjid. And we ain't put no real protection around the ones who's supposed to be our leaders. Supposed to be our leaders. It's just something for us to think about. Because I think about it a lot. I think about it all the time. And I think about it more for who is going to come after us, right? Because I come from a generation of soldiers, so we ready to put on. We were raised like that. Let's do it, wherever it go. But this next generation, they ain't seen that kind of soldiering, so they don't have that kind of spirit. But they're gonna be thrust in that type of reality, though. And how are we preparing that they don't face the same fate as those before them? Just something to think about. So you needed the wealth, because if you have the wealth, you protect your institutions. You build those institutions. And then not only that, you got to be willing to sacrifice yourself to protect those institutions. And let me tell you about security. Anyone who's on security, anyone's on security, you need to be prepared to die, or don't get on security. You don't belong on security. You're not prepared to die. Seriously. You make horrible security if you're not prepared to die. You can't worry about yourself or your family or anything else if you're on security. Your job is to protect. That's it. Whatever it takes, even if it's your life. Or you don't need to be on security. That's a security. You think the ones protecting presidents ain't prepared to die? If someone's protecting the president, you think that person's not prepared to die? And there's another reality. They also prepared to take life if necessary. It go both ways. They're prepared to give their life, and if necessary, they're prepared to take life. That's a security person. That's a soldier. Because he knows he's protecting something. He's guarding something that's valuable. And when you're securing the masjid, the imam, whoever, whatever your post is, you're protecting Islam. And you have to be a soldier. You have to have that spirit. I told y'all this story before, but to me, it's like a living example of what I'm talking about. So, and I miss those days. I don't like what I see in the Sunni community. I don't. It makes me sick to my stomach in terms of our protecting of our communities. It makes me sick to my stomach. The way we roll, it really, really disturbs me. You know how many imams, assistant imams, teachers I've heard about and know about that got assaulted in the masjid? Seriously. This is like, so you looking at what, man, this ain't the first time I saw somebody get shot at the masjid. I knew about that. It's not the first time. Unfortunately, this ain't the first time or the last time, probably, if we don't get ourselves together, that we won't see somebody shot at the masjid. At Juma with the children outside. Where are the soldiers? I'll tell you this story. I grew up, I told y'all this before, I grew up as an Ansar. Maybe some of you are new and young, you don't know about that. But I grew up in the Ansar community in Brooklyn. We had 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days security. A must. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There was never a time there was not security. And every able-bodied man had to be on security. That's how I grew up. Every able-bodied man had to be on security. No excuse, no exceptions, and dire consequences if you don't do it. That's how I grew up. And if anyone lived in New York or Philadelphia or DC or Detroit, in places in California, you know that to be a fact. Because if you lived in those neighborhoods, and they were always in black neighborhoods, you always saw people on posts all the time. So I remember I was a teenager and I had guard. So the structure was early in the morning, like 6 o'clock, right after Fajr, whenever Fajr was, we had to do physical training. This how serious it was about being a security, being a soldier, being on post. 6 o'clock in the morning, you got to go out and you got to train. Every morning, you going out and you training, right? When you come back, depending what's your position in the community, you got 3 to 5 minutes. I'm sorry. You got 3 to 5 minutes to take a shower and get to wherever you got to go. 3 to 5 minutes, literally. And if you didn't, somebody's coming to get you up out that shower. So most of us, we would have to go out and pedaling in the streets. Most of us. And when you're out there, you have to make a minimum of $100 a day. And you got to 9 o'clock at night. So you're leaving 9 o'clock in the morning. By 9, you got to be out. You can leave early if you can, but 9, you got to be out. By 9 o'clock at night, you have to be back if you made your money, which is the $100. If you didn't, you had to 12 at night. If you didn't have 9 to 12 guard. So if you wasn't a good person who could make money, you do all day guard from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. You don't go out, you do guard. You be on post. But when you went out, even after going out all day, you have a 3-hour guard shift, either from 9 to 12, 12 to 3, 3 to 6, or 6 to 9. You're going to get one of those posts. Everybody. You're going to be on guard. And you're going to protect an area in the community. Women's house, children's house, different spots, brothers building. You're going to be on some guard. Count on it. I'm telling you this for a reason, to show you how we used to think as a community in the Black community. And every community had variations, whether they were so-called Sunni communities or nation or Ansars or all Black communities who thought they were Muslim and thought they had Islam. This concept of security was A1 first and foremost all the time. The concept. So I'm telling this story of mine, and I think about it, and I was a teenager. I never will forget it. So I go out I do my 9. I make my money, I come back at 9 o'clock. Turn my money in, I'm on my post from 9 to 12. 9 to 12. I'm on my post. I never will forget this. It just sticks in my mind. 9 to 12. Around 11, it starts thundering and lightning. I'm on post. I'm a teenager. 17, maybe just getting ready to turn 18 or 18, early 18. I'm on post. It's pouring. No umbrella, no nothing. It was raining so hard. We had what we call a rover. That's like a security guy who go check on all the make sure people's relieved, check on like, for some odd reason, this rover who was supposed to be checking dropped the ball. I don't know what happened. 12 o'clock comes. There's no relief for me. It's pouring down, raining, thundering and lightning, wind blowing and everything. 12 o'clock. No relief. 12:30. No relief. 1 o'clock. No relief. 2 o'clock. No relief. 3 o'clock, supposed to be the next shift. No relief on my post. I'm still there. My relief didn't get there till 5:30 in the morning. And it was pouring down raining all night long. And guess what didn't happen? I didn't move from my post. And I'm not talking about, I'm a teenager. And it happened to others. It wasn't just my post. Some other posts didn't get relief too, but nobody moved. Not a one. Nobody moved. Because we understood we had a job to do. And to protect those people in that building, whether it was women, children, brothers, elders, whatever it was, you better not leave that post. And I was a teenager. And I understood that. And I had been up since when? Since around 6 o'clock in the morning. And I've been in the streets 3 hours during the training, then out, then for 12 hours out in the street, and then go spend another almost 9 hours on guard in the rain and lightning and thunder and wind with no umbrella, no protection, nothing, and better not move. That's a mindset that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about in the Quran. Even though we had misguided beliefs, but we understood certain concepts. We believed that that was the haqq, and that was falsehood, no doubt, the doctrine. But now we got the truth, and we worse. We don't even stand on posts, period. It ain't even a thought. Go to Juma, roll out. And don't probably see the mosque till next Friday. And don't check on nobody's children, don't check on nobody's, and care less about if somebody get hurt. That was the black community though. And if you talk to any soldier who was really down, not someone who's talking junk, someone who was really, as they say, 10 tones down, they'll tell you the same story in different communities. They'll tell you the same story in different communities. I remember elders used to walk down Bushwick Avenue, and when they would get to a certain point, and they would tell us, I don't even think about nothing happened to me once I get here. It don't even cross my mind. Now, once I get past y'all, I may worry about some stuff. But once I hit these blocks where y'all on guard, I don't even think about it. Where's that respect of the Black community for the Muslims? And now we on the haqq, as we say. We on Quran and Sunnah. Where's that respect? Where's that? Where's the soldiers? Where's that commitment? And then you ask, since that's missing, there's where the respect is. You don't respect yourself. You're not serious no more. So why I'm going to respect you? The guy who's a criminal in the gang or in the drug game, he got more heart than you. He's more committed to shaitan than you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why he don't even respect you, let alone fear you. It's deep, man. It's some serious stuff we got to think about. And I'm saying this because we have a lot of changing to do in the Black community. We have a lot, and we left something that our people desperately needed for some theology that don't turn to practice. You went to be someone else and forgot the very things that allowed others to come in this country and feel safe. You left it. And now you, with your own people, can't feel safe. Is this something to think about? And I would hope that this sad situation wakes us up as a community of African American Muslims. Because we live in environments where, unfortunately, crime is very high. And it needs a certain level of seriousness because of the situations we're confronted with. It deserves that. We don't live in the suburbs. Where there's a bunch of homeowners and wealthy people who will call the cops on you if you look suspicious. Now, we live where you can walk up and down the street and hang on a quarter and look suspicious and nobody's going to say anything. It's just a part of the environment. And since we're there, then we need to be something exceptional in that environment. We do. All of us. All of us should really take this situation to heart. And in our given areas, do our parts. Right? Really, we should have a serious commitment that this never happens again on our watch. Even if it didn't happen in our community, we should be dedicated to make sure something like that doesn't happen in our community. And it don't have to be the imam, anybody. Anybody. We can't be lacking like this. We can't. We can't. And unfortunately, some of us have no choice but to be lacking because we don't support our communities. So some imams, you better hope Allah protect you because we ain't doing our part. And we need in our communities to look at those situations and come together and start trying to assist one another so that everybody feels safe all the time. And it needs to be a standard. It needs to be a standard. That's it. So that's my advice. That's my advice to you. My advice to myself. Like, we have to take this stuff more serious. We live in rough times, seriously. And I don't know, some of you maybe not been, some of us should, but if you've been around a long time, it was a time, especially in our communities, Muslims were respected. I go further. Muslims were feared, not just respected, feared. They wasn't just respected, they were feared. You bet not do that. Don't go over there messing with them brothers. Don't do that. Absolutely not. And it's just something we should think about. And it's something we need to do, not just think about it, but we need to actually change. And so that's my reminder and my advice. We got to get ourselves together. And for those who want to theologically wiggle your way out of work, that stuff sounds great. That stuff sounds great. But that ain't fixing the reality. The Sahaba and the Tabi'een were soldiers. They were soldiers. They wasn't philosophers. They wasn't people who just talked. I'm on the Quran and the Sunnah. They were soldiers. Some of them were so much soldiers, they used to go out in the path of Allah. They went out so long, when they come back, their families didn't even recognize them. That's what kind of soldiers they were. They wasn't sitting back quoting, talking junk. They were soldiers. So that is a time for debates, and that has its place, right? And then there's time, yo, man, shut up with that if I knock you out. Get out of here with that crap. We need to handle real business. There's those times too. And don't think those ones you quoting, they were like that. They were like that. It wasn't all just words. Sometimes they handle their business. So there's a time for everything. And sometimes they debated. They did. And you need to know the difference between the two. You need to know the difference. Because some of us use all that so you don't have to be a soldier. I'm upon the Quran and the Sunnah means I have to do nothing besides read some books and put on some clothes and talk some junk and do nothing. So that wasn't the companions or the followers. That wasn't the Salaf. Nor was it the Imams of the Madhahib. Neither was it the Imams of Tasawwuf. None of them were jokers. They were serious about their business. All of them. They were serious all the time. So if we really want to be like that, let's be like that. And listen, it's a struggle. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not. We ain't get messed up overnight, and we ain't gonna get fixed overnight. That's some serious advice, man. It should pain us when it reaches the level that someone, whoever it is, doesn't matter. Whatever is it about, doesn't matter. Has the little bit of respect, almost none, to come to the masjid to harm another Muslim at the masjid. No, absolutely not. May Allah help us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us courage. Courage. We need courage. We need a lot of courage. And when you have a conviction in Islam, it'll give you courage. Even if you yourself are not such a strong individual, but if you have a sincere conviction in the deen and you realize that your greatest victory is death in the path of Allah, you'll get some courage. You'll get some. You don't, maybe you start off, you're not the most courageous person in the world. But if you get a real conviction about deen, it's going to give you courage. Trust me. It's going to make you, your conviction will give you courage. And we need courageous people. Not foolish people, courageous people. So wherever you at, whatever community you in, do your part. If your part is just encouraging the leadership to tighten up, do that. To advise and to admonish, just do that part. If that's all you could do. Right? Listen, I ain't like that, but Imam, we gotta tighten this up. Sheikh, we gotta tighten this up. Brothers, we gotta tighten this up. And all of you just be eyes. and be willing to do your part. Stop bucking so much. I mean, we're telling me what to do. Somebody need to tell you what to do. Someone needs to tell you what to do. Because you should do stuff on your own and you should be just motivated, but some of us are not like that. We need a little push. We need it. So may Allah reward you all. Let us recite Al-Fatiha for the soul of Imam Hassan Sharif. Our hearts go out to him and his family, his community, to the Muslims of Newark, New Jersey. You know, I used to live in Newark, so I know the community, and it's has a lot of Muslims, but they're completely divided, which also opens the door for people to see weakness. So even though you may have differences in your understandings, think you also have some common things that you need to work together on. You may have difference in methodologies and minhaj, and yeah, that's true. And there's a time to address that. But you do have a collective concern too that you need to work together on. And if you're able to go to his janazah, it is tomorrow uh, at 10 o'clock in the morning in Newark, New Jersey, or 9 o'clock. You can check on their website or whatever. But you need to get there early anyway because there's going to be a lot of people. Just if you make the intention of praying, but also the intention of a concerned Muslim for the calamities of other Muslims. And to send a message to the community that the Muslims are there for each other, physically as well as financially. So the money issue, mashallah, many have done that as we encourage you to do, and others have done from our sides, and that's a good thing. But that ain't all it takes. That's one aspect. But we also need that physical show. And those who cannot make it, like myself, I have another janazah, unfortunately, at the same time, locally. So I will not be able to make it. But our imams are coming, and they will be there to support and to make dua and to, because this is a big concern. And inshallah, we will be reaching out to the imams around New Jersey, especially in the African American community. We have some business we need to take care of collectively, and inshallah, we'll be doing that because we have issues that we have to deal with, and that's something that's an in-house issue that we need to take care of as a community, as leaders. And inshallah, we'll be reaching out to some of you to start that process, inshallah ta'ala. But may Allah make it easy for all of us. Barakallahu bikum wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala. Wait a minute. Did I recite Al-Fatiha for so? If I didn't, let me do it again. Al-Fatiha for the soul of Imam Hassan Sharif. Al-Fatiha. بارك الله بكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.